Mr. Chairman, I thank these witnesses. It's exciting to hear the rapid growth of commercial space in this transportation industry. And nobody want to slow it down. But I would like to hear you elaborate on this one-year time frame for streamlining regulations. Now, I've been on this committee for a long time. I've never seen regulations done within 1 year. And of course, Congress gets impatient with it. But here, and I go because perhaps you elaborated more, Ms. Gilham, is that how I pronounce Garaham? Perhaps more than others, although Captain Carol Connell has spoken of it as well. And your testimony has a headline that says safety must remain top priority, and I think everybody on this committee would agree with it. You indicate that, and I'm looking directly at your testimony, you cite Atlas and Delta vehicles that apparently have considerable experience in launching. But you said, yet during the here I'm quoting you, during the regulation streamlining process, it has often seemed that stakeholders being given the reins by government to drive the conversation include companies that are very new to the launch market and have yet to fly anything in space. These companies may not yet understand how challenging it is to reliably and safely launch into space. So I would like to hear your comments on these twin goals. Streamline regulations and make sure you do it safely. To ask you whether you think this can be accomplished, and indeed any comment you have would, I think, educate the committee as we hold the industry accountable.
Thank you for the opportunity. You're right, Atlas and Delta are launch vehicles with 100% mission success, and we think we have the most experience in this realm. We are the most reliable launch provider. We think with regard to the ARC process, it has been a very beneficial process. We have a lot of collaboration among industry, and we all agree, at least through the ARC process, that the regulations should move to a performance-based approach. One thing that you mentioned was the timeline. So we have concerns that the timeline is so aggressive, and now the ARC has provided its comments to the FAA, and the FAA is off writing the regulations. And we understand at this point there won't be collaboration between the ARC and the FAA until the notice of proposed rulemaking comes out. So we have some concerns there.
So what does that do to the timeline?
What does that do to the timeline? Well, you would have to ask the FAA, but it probably makes it easier for the FAA to meet their deadlines without the collaboration, because if the ARC and the FAA were working together, that may delay the process with industry input. But if we wait until the notice of proposed rulemaking comes out for ARC input or industry input through the ARC, our concern at ULA is that the regulations don't necessarily address the input that we provided through the ARC.
Captain Connell, you mentioned safety, and I can understand that pilots always think of safety first, but that may not mean everybody in the industry does. And I wonder what you think of this timeline, and if something must be sacrificed, what would you sacrifice?
So as I mentioned before, that safety is going to always take precedent over any timeline that's established. There's just no way to avoid that. The FAA needs time to do their safety data analysis so that they propose rules that they're comfortable meet the safety standard, be it in segregated airspace or an integrated airspace. There's just no variance on that. Whether we're sitting on the end of the runway deciding if it's safe to take off now with the weather that's on our departure path, again, whether it's a scheduled operation with 300 people sitting behind you, you always default to the safest course. And if the safest course means we're not going to make the 12-month deadline, well, then we're just not going to make the 12-month deadline.
I very much appreciate that understanding. I assume it goes for the entire panel. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady yields back. A gentleman from Pennsylvania, General Perry.